But now, coming from where? Las Vegas? Where do you come from, Rob? Where are you located right now? Washington, D.C.?
California.
California, here I come. Okay. Jody, who's Rob? You told us a little bit already, but tell us more.
I mean, Rob is really one of probably the most known, famous, storied facilitators in our world. Sorry, Rob, I'm just gonna embarrass you. His style is engaging, thoughtful. He's an extremely conscientious, well-rounded human that brings in all kinds of elements and thoughts and ways of work into his world, and he brings you into that world. He also is the author with Matt Taylor of the Collaboration Code books, which you may have seen. A lot of the work that we have been using and sharing with you has come from those super valuable books that distill the patterns and the tools and more from our methods. He has been working with his wife, Caroline, on all kinds of interesting and deeply important work in the world. So Rob, welcome.
Thank you. No pressure, right? Oh, good. That's wonderful. I am delighted to be here. And I've heard a bit of what you just covered, and it's wonderful. What could possibly be left to talk about? What I did notice Zoom fatigue on there. And how many hours have you been working today? Can I see your fingers, please? How many hours so far? Yikes, yikes. So maybe 2 or 3 hours here and lots of fingers for how long you've been working. All right, so the real question for me is, how can I be useful to you? That's the question any facilitator really has to start with, at least in her or his own mind. What would be more useful to you than a nice walk outside right now? Which probably sounds pretty good. So how do we answer that, Jody, so I get some input on what to do with my, half an hour or so and no more? So someone keep me honest and let me know when you want me to stop.
Rob, I've asked
I'll let Svenja and Jody do that to me all the time. So I'm going to rely on you for that. How long have I got, and what would be useful for this great group?
We've asked people to put some questions in the chat, but I think to start out, one of the things that you and I spoke about, and I think the panic moment for a lot of facilitators is when they start to lose control, or you sense that things are going in the wrong direction. Maybe you could talk about how you try to prevent that, and the ways that you work with your sponsors or the entire group. And also, when things have gone south, talk to us about some of the ways that you maybe have corrected for that.
Got it. Okay, here's a question for you. Do you know what a finger pole is? I just asked you how many hours, but anybody know a finger pole? A finger pole is, so some of you do, from 0 to 10. How honest do you want me to be right now about this whole control thing? Can I see the fingers? Okay. Kaylee, hold them up. Kaylee, could you take an average of that? It looks like they're asking, you're really asking for it. What do you see, Kaylee?
I see tens.
Yikes. So first of all, I'm going to call on you. Aunt said you're going outside. That's great. Cool. You can listen while you walk. Moving is good. As Adrienne said, not only for facilitators, your energy transfers into the group, depending on how you move. Even when you're on Zoom, when you're facilitating on Zoom, I never, well, like here, I was on a meeting before, I reset up my office so I can stand, because your energy is important. Your energy, if you don't have energy, you can't expect them to have energy. If you don't have control over the only thing you can control, you can't work with the group. Jenny, what's the only thing you can control in a group? Everybody get your finger on that unmute button, because I'm going to call on you.
I am here. You can control your speech and your voice, your speed. You're limited with how close you get to the camera or how far away you are.
Beautiful.
How much you see of your body, your hands.
And let me summarize. Well, let's see. Stephanie, what else can you control? What's the only thing you control as a facilitator? Stephanie.
So far, you control the design of your session. So always having that in mind, what is going to happen next? What is the next module? Still with the objective and the end outcomes in mind. So I would not call on participants to like, hey, hello, we're going away. Hi, no. Somehow you have to always have in your back pocket a way that shows that you are in control of the design, even if things don't go as you wish, so that you always can bring back the participants.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you have control of your voice, of your movement. You have control of your design. And your design needs to be informed by your conversations on the front end with at least some members of the group you're working with. Coming in cold is never a good idea. What are you going to design cold? So I heard, Jody, you mentioned a sponsor design team. Have you shared that secret with everyone? The sponsor design team. I mean, I hate talking about secret weapons because it sounds so violent. The secret ingredient, the secret sauce, is our ability to anticipate what we're going to be working with. Have they seen the rational, emotional, political model yet?
No.
Well, guess what? So in your conversations on the front end, there's always the rational thing we're working on. We would like to change this system. We would like to improve this problem. We would like to do this about that. Okay, that's the organizational or the systemic or the business reason for getting together. But guess what? In every large issue, system issue, transformation issue, there's one other piece. There's a political piece. Who's winning in the current system? Systems are always designed for someone to benefit. Okay, who benefits? Who's winning in the current organizational framework? Okay, guess what? You change that, you're affecting when and how they win. You're inviting other people to win. Your change will always result in some people at least temporarily feeling disadvantaged by the change you're proposing. Systems produce the effects that systems are designed to produce. Say that again. Systems produce the effects that they produce. Now, sometimes it's out of control. No system is completely out of control. Systems have their own dynamics that consistently produce a range of results. We look at the results and say some of those results are unfair, they're unjust, they're dumb, they're driving the planet off a cliff. We want to change these results. We can only do that by understanding the system that's producing those results. And in changing it, we're going to affect the power of people in that system, the relative power. Okay, so this is not news for you. Probably. The other piece is an emotional piece. This is a model I'll send to Jody, and it's in one of the books, and I use this all the time. I explain this to my sponsors because they come to me to solve the rational problem. And I go, great, we can do that, but only if we understand the full dimension of the problem. The squiggly blue line is the water line. The emotional piece. How do I feel about this change? Does it line up with my values? Am I going to be one of the losers as this change rolls out? And if I win, at what expense to anybody else or even to me? You've won things that cost you more than you won. I know you have. So how do I emotionally feel about this change we're proposing? These are submerged issues. When I'm working with sponsors, I'll share this little model, and then I'll ask, what do we need to do to understand what's below the water? Think about the Titanic, the sinking of the Titanic. The part of the iceberg they didn't see is what ripped the hole along the side of the ship. So the stuff we can't see, great. It's the stuff we don't see that will mess us up. So in advance, in the preparation, to anticipate the conflict, which is my translation of when you get out of control. Well, it's often there's a conflict or something happened I didn't anticipate. Oh, no, what do we do? I want to anticipate as much as possible. And with my sponsors, starting with them, lower the water line, and then do that with my group. What we can talk about, we can deal with. I need to make the undiscussable discussable. Who talks about the politics of this? This is where it really gets tricky. Who talks about the emotions? We talk about people's resistance to change. People don't resist change. We love change. A new movie comes out on Netflix or in the theaters. Remember theaters? A new movie comes out. It makes most of its money in the first few weeks. Why? Because it's new. We want to see the new thing. Do we like new clothes? Well, yeah, to some extent, we do. We don't resist the new, we resist failure and the fear of failure. So when I know what people will fear as we raise these topics, I'm able to design a way to deal with that. I don't get everything. I'm still surprised, but in deep dialogue with my sponsors, I help, first of all, them talk with each other. And I work mostly in organizations. We do some system work, we do peace and war work, we do gender inclusion, diversity work. We do all kinds of work. But in every case, I'm working with sponsors who don't talk together enough. And that's part of this secret ingredient, the sponsors becoming aligned to help me help a group talk things through. And even when there's this, become aligned. Okay, so it's, first of all, preventing the surprise. A surprise for me and an unpleasant surprise for them. I'll ask my sponsors, what are the tricky bits? What are the tricky bits here? What's hard about this? Why do we even need to do this workshop? You're smart. You're smart enough to come to me already. I know you're smart. So why is this necessary? What's hard? What's hard about this work? What have you tried already? What happened with that? To understand the territory helps me again anticipate things. And what I love about what Jenny and Stephanie said, we can control ourselves and we help control the situation. And then when we're surprised, we control ourselves again. A deep breath. A deep breath. There's an expression that my wife and I share with each other all the time. And I'm glad if I can remember it when I need it, which is why I'm glad she reminds me. This isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. It's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And Zian, what happens if you change your frame? It's like, oh crap, damn it, I didn't need this to happen now. What happens inside you, inside the only thing you can control, Zian? Forgive me if I messed up your name. What happens when you say yes to it?
I think being more amenable to it allows you to kind of surf it like a wave. Instead of seeing it as going into a brick wall, you're kind of able to move with it, the flow.
Exactly right. It's all energy. And when you, what you resist persists. What you resist persists. In a weird way, by resisting it, you give it energy. Well, that's crazy. That's the difference between boxing and Aikido. Tai Chi. It's taking an energy and working with it, surfing it, if you will, not saying no to it, saying, yes, come on. And pretty soon, instead of fighting, we're dancing. Instead of fighting, we're dancing to work with the energy that's being thrown at you. And also to recognize that calling forth that energy is necessary for the change you're looking to create. If the conflict stays below, I messed this up already, the conflict stays below the water, it's just going to sink the next boat that comes along. But to be able to talk about it, you know, what you can see and make room for gives it room to heal. What you hear, you can heal. What you hear, you can heal. If you don't let it be said, and at least convey, I hear you, I see you, I care about this. You never say that with words, so they go, oh, people have said that before. No, it's not what you say, it's how you are. So your welcoming attitude. A friend of mine once said, when it all goes south, do nothing very carefully. What should I do? Do nothing very carefully. Very carefully. Monique, what happens when you do nothing very carefully with a group? What's the message?
I guess that you give space to what's happening and that it's okay.
Yeah. And let me build on that, Monique. If you have a good relationship with some of the central players here, and we'll get to the question that Ellen, you asked, I'll get to that in a minute, but you've developed a relationship with the sponsor team. The conflict breaks out. You're in relationship with some of the central players. Where does everybody else look? They look at the sponsors. Is this okay? Am I going to get in trouble if I even say anything? Are the gods going to fight in Olympus and I'm one of the poor mortals that's going to get crushed, as does happen if you're not careful? Your relationship with the sponsors and their confidence in you that you've built up in that relationship building with them lets people look to them and they're not upset because they trust you. Does that make sense? Is that clear? So it's all about relationships. It's all about building relationships. You start with the sponsor team who has relationships with everybody else in the group, in the system. You've brought the whole system in the room to be able to work as a system. You have representatives of different parts of the system on your sponsor team. They're getting aligned in your work with them. They help align everybody else. Now, Ellen, what a great question. Your sponsors.
Can I just ask, before you jump to that,
Yeah,
one
sure.
of the things that we were just talking about on our board was the fact that sponsors are shrinking the time that they're giving us. And that means that the time to build those relationships is shrinking. Do you have some, before we switch to what Ellen's talking about, do you have some thoughts about how you can
I do.
pry those doors open? Thank you.
Well, yes. But it's even worse than that, isn't it, Jody? Not only are they shrinking the time they'll give you, they're shrinking their expectations of how much time we can all spend on this, because Zoom's killing us. Zoom is killing us. Zoom allows us to do this without having to all fly together and get the carbon debt of that. And some of you wouldn't be able to come, or we wouldn't be able to spend this time intermittently. So Zoom's good. It's a curse and a blessing. I find sponsors skinnying down the time they can imagine having a good session on Zoom. So it's up to you to figure out how to not have crappy Zoom calls. And how do you do that? Well, all the things you said before I started talking, those things. And Svenja and I disagree on how much time you can keep people, or should keep people, on a Zoom. We have different experiences of that. So play with that. And Jody, I introduced this thing to sponsors early on, and I get into what's hard about this. And I help them understand the importance of all of us understanding what we're getting into. So I make the case for time. One of my colleagues and students, if I may be so bold, at one of the big consulting companies, put it very nicely. I've been quoting him ever since. Ken Martin of the EY Wavespace said, time has to be the dependent variable, not the independent variable. Here's what that means. If someone says, but I can only give you 4 hours, I go, well, in 4 hours, you can only do so many things. You can only put 5 kilos in a 5 kilo bag. You can't put 10. So I want to talk, first of all, about your objectives and what is necessary and what's possible when we solve this. I want to engage their imagination about what would happen if we were successful. And I'll even be so bold as to say when we are successful. I presume success. And I've been able to achieve a lot of it. It's not bullshit. They can trust me on this. And if I don't think we can be successful, I'll tell them. And if I don't think we can be successful in the 4 hours plus 4 hours they're going to give me, I'll tell them that too. So let's take a look at in that. So if time is the independent variable, then the objectives must be dependent on the amount of time we have. So I'll lay that out and say, you tell me, is time the independent variable or the dependent variable? Are we just going to find a way to spend 4 hours, or do we want to get something done? If we want to get something done, let's figure out what's hard about that. And then let's have a really maybe tough conversation about what's necessary to do that thing you want to do. Okay? We don't have time to have a baby. We only have 4 months. What can you give me in 4 months? Well, not a baby. That's not how it works. Not how it works. Not how it works. Jody, do you have a follow-up on that? Or so I want to have that. That's one of the below the water. And why are they asking for 4 hours? Why are they asking for little time? Politically, they're not sure they can afford it. They're busy people. We're very busy people. Like I'm not. Come on. So yes, we're all busy people. We don't want to waste our time. What's going to make a good use of your time? And good use of your time is getting your objectives met, not just using up 4 freaking hours of time. Don't come to me for that. Go watch Netflix. But if we're going to work here, here's what work requires. And you got to count on me to tell you what the work requires. That's what you're asking of me. So let me tell you. So for a facilitator, there's the smile, but there also has to be some teeth. There also has to be the willingness to say no. And no can actually be a great beginning. My colleague, William Ury, who wrote the book, Getting to Yes, and I work with him all the time on peace stuff, climate change stuff. Also wrote a great book called, I can go get it, but it's on my shelf, The Power of a Positive No. And I'll share also one of my patterns with Jody and Svenja to distribute to you. It's called No Makes a Good Beginning. Because a lot of the political players aren't used to hearing a no. They've surrounded themselves with people who think they get ahead by saying what? Yes. Yes, boss. Whatever you need, boss. How high, boss? Do you want me to jump? Somebody needs to say no when no is required, and that's you. So that's the job. That's the deal.
I just want to say we have about 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes left. And so maybe Ellen's question.
Yeah, let me go to
and
Ellen's
other.
question.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful, Ellen, it tells me you've done this before. So let me take a shot, Ellen, and then you get to follow up in 5 minutes we have. They're always part of the political system. And if they're not, they're the wrong sponsors. They need to be part of the political system. And the question of what are you going to lose and what still makes it a win for you is a good conversation to have. Possibly one-to-one, possibly one-on-one. I like working with sponsors as a group, and yet it's also true that people aren't necessarily completely candid with their political colleagues and perhaps rivals. But we can open the question of, look, in every change, somebody feels like they might lose. What's at stake? What's at stake? That is a good conversation to have. And it's not bad for political sponsors to have that with each other